Hello and welcome to the Monroe Method Clancast. I am Jason Monroe. This is episode 166. I don't know what the title is going to be today. Maybe about something. It's going to be something weight loss journey. So I've put up a daily post inside Clan Monroe today, and I thought it would make for a really good podcast topic because the term weight loss journey, it's a bit airy-fairy, isn't it, right? But it is a journey. It's appropriate. It's just been kind of ruined by, I don't know, social media, I suppose. Social media likes to ruin everything. People think a weight loss journey is about forcing yourself to stick to a diet for long enough until your weight goes to the number you want it to go to, right? That's not a journey. That's what did I think I called it something. That's suffering. Yeah, it's not a weight loss journey. It's a journey of finding out how long you can suffer for. You know, a weight loss journey is not about going from A to B. It's getting to B in the right way. It's what do you learn along the way? What do you change? What habits do you have now? How do you think differently? How do you think about yourself? How do you think about your body? How do you think about your health? I've just done a check-in with a guy I've been working with, Brent, who has gone from, 101 kilos last year to currently 86, I think he was. I've shut the check-in now. But he's lost over 50. He's lost about 15 kilos, or maybe just over 15 kilos. And he is now at the point where we're ready to stop working together. And he said something really... I'm going to get it up. Because I can't remember what he bloody said. And I want to get it word for word, because I'm like that. He said... Brent. He's now 86 kilos. He was 101. This part here. I feel comfortable... Okay, extra comments. I feel comfortable that I've built the knowledge and habits to manage things independently. We are just finishing off the job now over the next month. I want to sincerely thank you for your guidance over the last few months. Dropping from 101.6 to where I am now has been a genuinely transformative process for me, and your support, structure, perspective have played a big role in that. I've taken a lot away from this experience and feel well set up. Sorry, I've not got my glasses on. And feel well set up for the long term. So, and it's very timely that he posted that when my daily post inside the community today is about, a weight loss journey is not just about taking someone from A to B. How many times have you gone from A to B? Or how many times have you gone from A to getting close to B? People typically go A, B, A, B, A, B. We would also call that yo-yo dieting. And the problem isn't with the results. It's not with the diet. The problem is with the journey. The person is not learning the right things along the journey. Do you know, I suppose it's a bit like passing an exam. You can study for a year, take an exam and fail the exam. Maybe not because you didn't study hard enough. Maybe you studied hard on the wrong things. Maybe you gave certain things too much attention and other things not enough attention. Maybe there was an area that you weren't confident in that you hyper-focused on, and it led you to neglect other areas that were equally as important. It's not that you've done anything wrong. It's that, there's just been a little bit of a mismatch along the way. We've focused on the wrong things, and this is why people end up going back to their start weight. If we bring that back to yo-yo dieting and weight loss, people, and especially if you've dieted many times, if you are, I've said this before, like I'm 40, I'll be 41 this year. I started doing this when I was 31. As I've gotten older, the people that I've worked with have gotten older. The range of people I worked with was like late teens to mid 40s. Now it's mostly people between like 40, mid to late 30s into their 50s and 60s. As the people I've worked with have increased in age, the more I'm working with people who have dieted for their entire adult lives, people going back to the ages of 13, 14, 15, because people who are in their 40s, 50s and 60s grew up in the 80s, 70s and 60s, back at a time when, it was particularly earlier on. Like the closer we get to the war, the more unusual it was to be overweight. I'm not going to get into this today, but I've got this thing about the war where the whole, parents and grandparents especially telling us not to waste food, getting us to clear our plates. I feel, this is completely personal and anecdotal. I've not read anything about this, but I feel like a lot of the eating issues many of us have when it comes to scarcity and waste and clearing plates and all of those things, I feel like a lot of that comes from war times when food was rationed and it was scarce and you didn't waste food. You sure as shit did not eat something. You did not leave food on a plate. And I feel like that's a generational thing that still affects us today. Anyway, sorry, that was a tangent. We'll do that another day. But yeah, I'm working with people who have dieted for all of their adult lives. They're in their 40s, 50s, 60s. They were taken to their first diet, their first diet class. Weight Watchers seems to be the one that people went to the earliest. Some people I work with, their parents took them to the doctors about their weight because they thought there was something wrong with them, because there was a time when it was odd for someone to be overweight, whereas now it's the norm, isn't it? 60. The UK is now closing in on 70% of adults are overweight or obese, a far cry from what it used to be just 50 or 60 years ago. So the added factor there is, it's also the amount of times that you've repeated the cycle. That drains on you as well. And you start to lose belief. I've just spoken to someone who said they feel silly for the way that they eat. Like, they understand what they need to do and they're not doing it and they feel silly for it. And I need to try and, I don't need to try and make the person feel better. I need to make them see that there's nothing silly about it. If it was as simple as, well, you just need to eat less and everybody would be doing it and nobody would be overweight. It's not that simple. Emotions come into it. Emotions are not logical. Yes, logically it's very straightforward. Eat less and you'll lose weight. Eat more and you'll gain weight. But logic and emotions very rarely line up together. And when someone develops an emotional connection to food, then it's not as straightforward as just eat less and move more, as all this helpful keyboard warriors and social media like to comment on many of my posts. You need to think of a weight loss journey, and I've said this before, I can't remember if it's been a podcast episode, but the way that I think of a weight loss journey is that it should be a weight gain journey, but in reverse. So this isn't true for everyone. Some people were overweight as children and it didn't quite pan out like this, but if you're someone who's gained weight later in life, or you were overweight as a child and your weight was a focal point, that will have had an impact as well. But you did not arrive at your current weight overnight. And your weight has not all come from the same place, okay? Yes, in the grand scheme of things, if we take a big step back from it, we all lose and gain weight the exact same way, right? We eat too many calories, our body has to store that as body fat, our bodies get bigger. That applies to everyone. And it's the same, it's true in the opposite direction. Eat less calories than you need, your body makes up the shortfall from your body fat, and you lose body fat. You become smaller, you become lighter. However, it's not as simple as that on paper, is it? And I say this all the time, we all lose and gain weight the same way, but we arrive at both destinations in our own unique ways. My pathway to weight gain came from, and I know I've been talking about this a lot recently, but my pathway to weight gain stemmed from childhood habits, being taught to clear every plate, developing the habit of eating very quickly because I knew if I did that, then I could clear every plate before I felt too full, being beat over the head with food waste and reminded about the starving kids in Africa, then being around dieting environments, watching my mum poke and prod at her body and try clothes on and talk about herself negatively and wander around the kitchen asking herself, what am I allowed to eat? And then later on in life, me then developing habits of using food for escape, using it for pleasure, using it for excitement, using it to cope. There's probably other things that I've not really thought about, but at each stage, you're developing something new. You're developing a new habit, a new attachment. And like I said recently as well, like each attachment that you have to food comes with its own portion of weight. So let's say you reached the age of 19 and then you went to uni. Excuse me. And prior to that, you didn't have any issues with your weight. And then you became 19 years old and you went to uni and you stayed in the halls at uni. You didn't have very much money. You were responsible for your own eating and you started eating a lot of super noodles and toast, for example. You also went from being relatively active to sitting down more studying. You started drinking more alcohol because you were closer to that environment. And so, as expected, your weight went up the way. And then there was stress with studying, stress with assignments, with deadlines, with exams. You then started leaning on certain foods more to cope with that. And then you split up with your first partner, who was your first true love. And then you discovered that you could eat chocolate and that would make you feel a little bit better. And then you graduated and you started a career. And then you moved to a different town where you didn't know anybody, and then you started leaning on food more for comfort. And then you met someone and you started eating like them, or you started eating out more, or then, your life is not one continual path that just stays the same all the time. And your eating is not one continual thing that stays the same all the time. The world around you changes, your life changes, you change. And so the way that you take care of yourself changes. So it's correct to say that weight gain, we all lose and gain weight the same way, but it's incorrect to say that we all have the exact same things going on. We all arrive at our current weight in our own. When I'm setting up someone's nutrition plan, so we get to day 7, they fill in the form and they'll tell me about their dieting history. Some people are very light, some people don't have a dieting history, some people will know every step of the way, and then I graduated, and then I met my husband, then we got married, then we had kids, and every stage of the way their weight went up and stayed the same for a while. Then something new happened, then it went up, then I fell pregnant and gained a stone and I've never lost it. Then, just as I was trying to lose weight, I had my second kid, my weight went up by another stone and I've still got that weight. So, this is why I think of a weight loss journey as being a weight gain journey, except it's in reverse. You are doing a 180-degree turn and you are looking backwards through your life, and you have to march back through all of these things. Meaning, and again, I know this is going to be I didn't mean for it to, it's just panned out that way, but it's relevant. This is a repetition of the last episode where I talked about food attachments, right? So one of the lessons that I teach clients is about their food attachments. I eat every time I'm in the car, or I have I have 2 biscuits with every cup of tea and I have 5 cups of tea a day, or every time I'm sad, I eat this particular food. I can't drive past a Costa without stopping for a latte, and if I grab a latte, I've got to have a pastry with it. All of, and then all of the other things as well. Every time I eat out, it has to be 3 courses plus drinks. We get takeaways every Friday, Saturday. I drink alcohol during the week and at the weekends. All of these things, anything that we harness consumption to, adds its own portion of weight to our body. So if you are 45 years old, and you are 15 stone, and when you were 20, you were 10 stone. So at some point, or over the course of those years, what did I say, 20 to 45? So over the course of 15 years, you have gained and lost and gained and lost, but ultimately ended up at 15 stone, 5 stone heavier than you once were. Now, those 2 points are pretty irrelevant, right? Your life is completely different at 45 to what it was at 20. So it's ridiculous to think that you should still be the exact same weight and be able to take care of yourself the exact same way, because when you were 20, you don't realize it until later. Like when I used to think I didn't have time and I was stressed before I had kids. Jesus Christ. What did I do with all that time that I had? your life's never going to be the same at 45 as it was at 20. Therefore, your weight doesn't necessarily need to be the exact same, right? You might not get all the way back to 10 stone. And if you, sorry, did I say 10 stone? Yeah. You might not get all the way back to 10 stone. And even if you did, you're not a little girl anymore, or a little boy, or a young man. You know, a 20-year-old body is not the same as a 45-year-old body. Sorry, I don't even know if any men listen to this podcast. It's just that because 96% of the people I work with are women, and I'm used to speaking to women, I always tend to direct these episodes at women, which is the wrong thing to do. But you get the point. So, but it's also about acknowledging, well, yeah, I'm probably not going to get back to 10 stone. I don't need to. I might, but I also don't need to be 15 stone. How did I get to 15 stone? You know, this happened and that happened and that happened. I never used to eat when I was sad. I never used to keep bags of sweets in the car. I never used to stop at drive-thrus all the time. I never used to eat as many takeaways. I used to be able to go for a meal out, just have a main and stop eating when I started to feel full. Why does it have to be some big occasion now where it's 3 courses plus sides plus drinks? No number of calories is going to help you get, that's the wrong thing to say. There is not a specific number of calories that's going to take you to your goal weight. It could help, that's why I changed that. No diet is going to help you get to and stay at a goal weight, because the absence of Slimming World is not the reason you're overweight. The absence of calorie counting is not the reason that you're overweight. You are overweight because over the last however many years, you have developed multiple touch points, we'll call them, because I just seen my business coach use that term on Instagram, actually. You have created multiple food touch points. You know, if we all just woke up and had breakfast, lunch, dinner, 2 or 3 snacks in between, 1 or 2 of those is fruit, we ate until we were full, we stopped eating, or we ate until we felt satisfied, stopped eating when we started to feel full, very few of us would have any issues with our weight. You know, if that's where it stopped. That's not where it stops. Your weight ultimately comes from all the additional eating that you do on top of that. The snacks, everything I've described, I'm not going to repeat it all. The drive-thrus, etc., etc. All of the additional and extra eating that we do on top of that, you know, it's basically all the unnecessary eating that we do on top of the necessary eating. The necessary eating tends to be less of an issue. Yes, most people need to work on improving the balance of their eating. Most people need to work on having more protein and more fruits and more vegetables in their diet. But ultimately, the main issues lie with people eating beyond fullness and people eating when they're not hungry. People using food. You know, and the more that you use food, the more reasons that you have for using food, the higher your weight is going to be. So the point that I'm making is that all of your habits, everything that you attach to food, your eating habits, your drinking habits, etc., you did not, you didn't go to bed one day with a healthy weight with great eating habits and wake up the next day 5 stone heavier with 30 unhelpful eating habits. You build these things gradually over time. So this is why a weight loss journey should be your weight gain journey in reverse. Oh God, what episode was it? I did what I felt was an excellent episode where I spoke about the challenges of people who have more weight to lose, right? So this is really helpful to bring this back into this one. If someone is 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 stone, whatever, that person is not just going to get a number of calories and make it all the way to their goal. I spoke in that episode about roadblocks. So you might lose your first stone or 2 stone or maybe even 3 stone, and then you can't get any farther. That's because you've gone as far as a diet will take you. You've gone as far as a number of calories will take you, and you have now, you've walked your weight gain journey in reverse, and you've now met your first obstacle. You've now met your first challenge. Your weight cannot go any farther because your emotional eating won't let it go any farther. Your alcohol habits, your takeaway habits, your snacking habits, your lack of planning, you're not prioritizing protein and vegetables, or your avoidance of fruits and vegetables. So you've managed to lose 2 or 3 stone. and now you can't get any farther. And it's because you've gone as far as that diet's going to take you. You've gone as far as that number of calories going to take you, and now you have your first thing to overcome. And then you have to navigate that challenge. You have to become or you have to start becoming someone who eats more fruits and vegetables so that you can reduce your hunger, so that you can get by on less calories consistently, so that your weight can come down. Or you need to start working on picking apart and understanding why you eat when you're sad, why you rush to the cupboard when you feel stressed, why you eat when you feel lonely, why you snack in front of the TV, or you have to have whatever, you have to have something sweet after every meal, or what, it could be clearing every plate, or eating because it's a meal time instead of actually checking if you feel hungry. So you can get so far, but you will meet each, and again, this is the whole weight gain journey in reverse thing. You're going to meet the first roadblock. So let's say the first roadblock is clearing every plate, right? And let's say that, we have a conversation. I explain that, this is as far as your weight's going to go. We're going to have to start working on habits. You've had it relatively easy so far. You've managed to stick to numbers. You've lost a significant amount of weight. Awesome. Now the real work begins. You are going to have to start stopping eating when you feel full. Start to stop eat. Oh, fuck. You know what I mean. You're going to have to start doing that. And let's say they start doing that, and let's say that lets them lose another 10 pounds, and then they can't get any farther. So you could then, I know this is sounding very simplistic, it's not as straightforward as this, but it helps with understanding. So we could say, okay, you've managed to lose another 10 pounds now that you're no longer clearing every plate. So this comes back to the weight attachment thing, where we can say that clearing every plate was adding 10 pounds to your body. You're no longer doing that. The 10 pounds has come off. What's the next roadblock? The next roadblock is that you keep bags of sweets in the car. And every journey you're making, you're eating a handful of whatever. Handful of Skittles, a handful of Haribos, whatever it is. Let's stop putting sweets in the car. If you really want to have a sweet in the car, you intentionally take some from the house and take them in the car. You will likely never do this. Nobody is going to put a handful of sweets in their hand, walk out, sit in the car and sit with this handful of sweets and eat them, right? I don't think anyone's doing that. You're eating them because they're there. Now, I am not about removing foods from the kitchen so we don't eat them. I'm not about removing foods from the house so we don't think about them or eat them or restrict ourselves. What I am about is keeping food to a food environment. A car is not a food environment. It's not a cupboard. It's not a kitchen. It's not a place to store your food. I used to work with a guy who was heavily overweight, and he occasionally gave me a lift to work throughout the years, and he had like 3 packets of sweets down each door. Imperial mints and soft mints and boiled sweets. He was an older guy, but he was constantly eating these sweets every journey he made. And, it wasn't the reason he was heavily overweight, but it was part of the many reasons he was overweight. So you've lost 10 pounds because you're no longer clearing every plate. Now you're going to stop buying bags of sweets for the car. Your weight comes down by another 8 pounds. So we can say, right, the sweets that you were eating, every trip that you took every single day, back and forth to work, back and forth to the supermarket, to dropping kids off at clubs, whatever, that was putting 8 pounds of weight on your body. So it's so incredibly important to understand. And again, this keeps circling back to this kind of main message that I've got, especially in 2026, that you cannot bring about a change to your weight without bringing about a change to your life. There is no version of reality where you get to keep doing everything that you're doing the same way that you're doing it, but also get to live in a lighter body. And I think, this is going to be my main focal point for 2026. Getting people round to the correct way of thinking, to stop treating your weight as something you do something about when it gets bad enough, and understand that if you ever want to stop being a slave to the yo-yo diet industry, you are going to have to do the hard work. It's not going to be easy. It's not supposed to be easy. If it was easy, you'd have done it by now. If it was easy, you'd already be living at your goal weight. But the thing is, not everyone's ready for that. Not everyone's ready. Some people need their epiphany. I like I said this before, I found myself very lucky that I only dieted for about 10, 11 years. I work with people who have yo-yo dieted for 5 times as long. I had my realization at 31, and I feel very lucky that it came so early. But you have to reach that point by yourself. I have had people come to work with me, get through the first 30 days and then disappear because it's too hard, or I'm making them face too many things, or we're having too many uncomfortable conversations and they've went back to Slimming World. And then they'll come back a month later and say, I had to go back to Slimming World just to give it one last try, but I realise I can't even listen to the meetings anymore after being here working with you. Anyway, I have completely forgotten. Oh yeah, A to B. So a weight loss journey is not just about going from A to B, right? You've done that multiple times. Maybe you've made it all the way to a goal. Maybe you've even stayed there for a little while. But ultimately, you've always gone back to where you were, or even higher. And it's because we're not addressing the right things between A and B. And if you are someone listening to this who is not yet at perimenopause stage of life, you're still in your 30s or you're in your very early 40s, you're not quite there yet. And I'm not trying to scare anyone, but I've only realised this over the last few years. I went through, or I was starting to go through perimenopause with my ex-wife, and being so close to it, I kind of realise now that, if a woman does not resolve her eating habits before she turns 40, then it's going to become even more difficult. I say 40 because like some people enter perimenopause 46, 47, 48. My ex-wife, she entered it very early, 42. But then so did her mum. But yeah, menopause is an amplifier. So I can't stress enough how important it is. If you're not someone that's working with me yet, or even if you are, this is a helpful thing to hear. It is so important to stop messing about with your weight, to stop trying to chase the quick fixes, to stop looking for the easy route, to stop trying to lose the most amount of weight in the shortest amount of time with the least amount of effort and sacrifice, and just do it properly. Because if you allow the emotional eating, the way that you're using alcohol, the way that you're celebrating, the way you're commiserating, anything that relates to food and drink, if you don't stop trying to ignore that and try to deal with your weight with diets, you are going to reach a point where your hormones are starting to change, where your mood is starting to change, where your hunger levels are starting to change. And all that's going to happen is all of your unresolved eating issues are now going to become 5 to 10 times more difficult to change, because you're not just fighting against day-to-day life. You're also now trying to do it through perimenopause and then menopause. And that just makes it even more challenging. That is, that doesn't mean to say that it doesn't feel hard right now. Like I said earlier on, I used to think I didn't have any time, and then I had kids. It's not until you have kids you realise how hard it is. Or how much time you don't have and how much time you did have. It's a similar situation here. Like, things feel difficult now. But I've worked with so many women now going through menopause, and it just kind of makes me feel like, if you had worked on this 10 years ago, instead of giving that time to Slimming World, or giving that time to Weight Watchers, or doing 8-week challenges and whatever, and actually worked on the things that matter, I mean, you're not going to know, because you're never going to know, are you? You only get to live your life. You don't get to go back and see what it'd be like if you did things differently, or fast forward into the future and see what things will be like if you do it differently. All I can do is say from my outside perspective, with my best understanding, because I will never go through menopause, is that unless, if you don't work on this stuff now before you reach that stage, it is going to become even more challenging. So, circling back to the beginning, stop treating weight loss as the shortest distance between points A and B. The actual journey part is the most important part. How you achieve B is the most important part, not just getting there. if you white knuckle hunger and willpower and manage to get a result on a scale, awesome. But you will immediately start to regain that weight, which is not so awesome. If you go through the process, like I said, of, doing a 180 and walking backwards through your weight gain journey and address each of these things along the way and lose the weight that it assigned to your body along the way, that's when your chances of success drastically increase. Anyway, enough waffle from me today. Until next time.